All right, so let's kick off. This is the Ask Me Anything, discussing the realignment of monitor APM team members to other teams. So I think we're going to try to use this time to, one, discuss those teams and what they're doing to some degree, definitely answer anybody's questions about either the realignment process or the specific decisions here. And I think we'll jump right into the agenda then. So Chris, I think you had the first item talking about growth fulfillment.
Yeah, sure, thanks. I just want to talk a little bit about what we're up to in the fulfillment team. Basically, the fulfillment team is as a whole, and there's 3 separate sub-teams there, front end, back end, and business integration, is responsible for all the purchasing of GitLab's products and services, and that includes products like CI minutes, and another project we're working on is the purchase storage. So basically, anytime the customer interfaces with buying one of GitLab's products, they go through the fulfillment process, and that's what we implement in the fulfillment teams. It's kind of an interesting time in fulfillment right now, and one of the reasons we're looking to expand the team is that we're kind of reevaluating the fundamental way that fulfillment works. As you may or may not know, the fulfillment process is really separated into a separate total project called the customers portal, and it's a little bit disjointed from the experience of actually going into GitLab.com and purchasing a product. You have to go out to a separate application and interface to that application to actually buy products and see your previous purchases, etc. So we're looking to reevaluate how we do that, and very likely we'll be integrating more of the workflow in the customer portal directly into GitLab.com itself. So some of that work will be part of the UI, and also be back-end work and using and creating new interfaces to GraphQL, and we're even evaluating the option of integrating 100% the customer portal into GitLab.com, but that's open for discussion still. Another responsibility for the fulfillment team is to make it easy for other growth teams to run what we call experiments, or the ability to try out new flows in as far as purchasing or buying products, or leading customers into the process of buying or upgrading, or even remaining a customer of GitLab itself. So we want to make it easy for other teams to expand the product and run experiments as far as the fulfillment process is concerned. And just one last point here is the fulfillment team does integrate pretty heavily with other projects and other teams, including Zora and Salesforce. So a lot of the work that we do is going to be evaluating how we interface with those products, and also the reliability of those interfaces and the dependability of the data with third-party systems. So that's kind of fulfillment in a nutshell, and probably leave the questions to after the other presentations.
Great, thanks, Jerome. Or thanks, Chris. Excuse me. I guess Jerome, you're up next. Let me check if. Oh,
there we go. Hey everyone. I'm just going to do a really quick screen share just to walk through a couple of slides. So I put together a quick slide deck just to introduce the telemetry team. And the quick introduction is that we're a team of 4 people. We have Ali and Alina, who are our backend engineers, and Alper, who is our senior full stack that's on loan from the conversion team, and myself, that's the engineering manager. We actually formed earlier this year. And since forming this year, we've done a few things which I'll highlight. The first one is we fixed usage ping, which was previously broken on GitLab.com. We created a data collection framework, built out tooling support for usage ping and Snowplow, created an event dictionary, which is a single source of truth for all of our metrics and events, and a bunch of other things related to just getting the the organization more data-driven. The result of this is, as we've gotten more data within our R&D functions, is that our R&D is now starting to shift towards driving monthly active usage. And with that understanding, we're able to start building out growth models to really understand our own customer adoption journeys. So we've just started this, and the sort of things which we're working on next include really 3 themes on the engineering side focused on data collection. The first is continuing to build out our collection framework. The second one is scaling and maintaining usage ping. We've got a lot of scalability challenges for this right now. And the third one is instrumenting tracking. In addition to this, for the data that we've actually collected, we're trying to get that into the hands of product sales and customer success so that they can actually make better decisions. And we're also doing research on our data collection policies. So understanding how best to balance our product usage needs while respecting our users' needs for privacy. So that's telemetry in a nutshell. We're looking for one backend engineer to join us. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Jerome. And next, we're going to talk about the Verify team, which is the third group that is requesting more engineers or more individuals in this process. Darby's out, so I was going to vocalize some of this, and then I think Kenny's going to talk. Kenny and Cheryl are going to talk a little bit more about it. Yeah, Verify, I mean, probably as you know, is focused on CI. It's a really core part of GitLab's product. It's a mature part. It's heavily used. There's lots of feedback from the community. There's lots of feedback from customers. There's no shortage of things to do. And it's also a really critical point in that customer journey. I think we've been discovering that Jerome was talking about. So Kenny, do you want to elaborate a little more on that?
Yeah, we've recently discovered in the analytics that Jerome was talking about that the number of stages that customers adopt heavily determines whether or not they will up tier, as well as specifically in CI, that CI usage typically trends downward prior to a customer churning, something we recently realized. So the CI group and the category itself are critical to expanding the kind of complete DevOps platform that we want to provide to our users. I listed some examples of interesting front-end work that is going on in the group today. You can read through that and look into any of those specific links for the issues and details. Maybe I'll turn it over to Cheryl to speak a little bit about the team itself.
Sure, thanks, Kenny. So currently on Verify CI, we have 7 backend engineers and 3 front-end. So we're looking for 2 additional front-end folks to join us. And I just want to add on the technical side of things. I would also want to mention that we're actually doing a lot of exciting work with GraphQL right now. That's really new, and the group is like all the front-end folks are actually focused on pursuing this. There's also been some great collaboration recently between engineering and UX, specifically more on the front-end folks, front-end engineering, which will actually drive a lot of the UX improvements we hope to make in CI. And as Kenny mentioned, there's a lot of initiatives we're taking on right now that touches a lot of the front end, and I think this actually speaks to the amount of work we could be leveraging even more. From what I understand with speaking to UX is that, we could be doing a lot more, but given some of the limitations with front end right now, we aren't pursuing them. So I think it's great that if we have the ability to add more, we can do more.
Thank you, Cheryl. So now I think we're going to move into questions. Look like you had the first one, Miguel.
Yeah, so the first one is, I suppose the easy one is, how should we communicate our team preferences? I think Clement is already answering that.
Yeah, so based on how we previously did it, I think the expectation is to send a message to your manager, kind of your preference, and then we'll do our best to acknowledge everyone's preferences, and hopefully we can get the right mix. But at the same time, we can't have everyone join the same team, just because that's not how we can operate successfully. So we'll take that into consideration, and I think if too many people lean one way, there may be some extra processes to really refine that list a little more. But we'll do our best to do that. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sam.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And, in this process, which many of you know, we've gone through a couple times, a few times now, we really try to emphasize like putting people in roles that they're going to be excited about, that they'll feel fulfilled about, because obviously that's better for everybody. We want you to in a role that feels exciting and something you'd want to focus on. So yeah, you can send those preferences. It's really the front end and back end engineers who have 2 choices. You can send them to your manager. You could also directly Slack them to me. If you want, we'll compile those, and ideally everybody gets their first choice. If not, then what we would do is we would, have you talk with the engineering manager, and they would have to make a final call in terms of, who they think has the best skill set. And, everybody will end up in a role that hopefully, they find fulfilling. Looks like you got the next question too, Miguel.
Thanks. Yeah, so I wanted to ask about perhaps a bit the future and the learning opportunities of the GitLab dashboards dogfooding. So we were in the process of switching from Grafana to our APM built dashboards for the SRE team. I think it was considered kind of a strategic move by the product team, and I wonder if there are some things we could say about them in general. If we perhaps we were late in adopting dogfooding, and it should have been something that was done earlier in the life of the APM team, or maybe it should have been done when the SRE team required this more. Or so I just want to know if there's a future for this, and what can we do next time when we see the opportunity to talk to it. What should we do, or what can we do better?
Yeah, thanks, Miguel. I will say I expect that we will continue to dog food those dashboards, and that the teams will continue to use them and provide feedback. The scope of that and who will cover ongoing improvements is going to move to the current health team, but I don't think it sounded a little bit like you were asking it as if it was a loose end, if that meant it was like a lost cause, like we did that work for not, and that is not the case. I expect that those teams will still continue to use them for things like the customer dashboards that they're using them today, and we will continue that effort. So I think of it as an ongoing success. The other part that you seems to be implying was like, is there were there mistakes made in how we pursued dogfooding that we should consider for future dogfooding efforts? And I actually think of it more as there's a number of successes. I think of things like the great partnership and leadership between folks like Clement and Dove and the infra leaders and Sam, having OKRs that matched up to those internal teams, like dogfooding effort OKRs for product engineering and infra is something we're trying to replicate in future dogfooding efforts. The partnership with the direct stable counterparts, the whole team, I can say from my observation, but I know from all of you that became a very central part of the team's work and ethic, and it wasn't just product saying we should do this. I know every team member was on board with, we got to make sure we're pursuing dogfooding, and I think that was an awesome experience that we would hope to replicate in future dogfooding efforts. So I think if you look back, you could always say, oh, maybe we should have started earlier, but I don't think that and Daraj asked a question about this later, I don't think that materially would have impacted the rationale for this move. So does that answer your question?
Yeah. I'm happy to hear that the dashboards will continue to be used by the SRE team, and then hopefully we will extend that to the public as well, so that the public also sees them actively developed.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just add too that I think it's important to say that, yeah, this is not motivated by there was some failure or mess up with the dashboards project or APM. This is really motivated by there's these highly critical needs within the company that need more focus, and so it's really about shifting valuable people to those priorities more than that there was some mishap that caused this change.
Thanks. I'll move to the next question. Is there going to be a so looking at the timeline, at the time frame, most of the year I would have been working with Clement, so I would expect him to participate in my yearly review. However, as I move to another team, I think that might not be the case. So I wanted to know how my performance evaluation would be impacted, and if this would have any impact in the compa group that I fall in later on, or should I be evaluated based on only the new teamwork? What would be the process there?
Yeah, I'll chime in from my side. I definitely think that we will definitely take into account both managers, because the review, if we follow what we did last year, is starts in November, and so yeah, it's already August, so there's not much time left, and it'll be here before we know it. So definitely we'll work together to make sure you're getting a holistic evaluation.
Okay, thanks.
All right, I think I have the next question. So this question is more about the realignment, and I think I already got some of the answers, but I'll still ask if there are any additional thoughts. It felt like the entire thing happened very quickly, and I say that because it was not long ago when we identified our North Star metric, and now we're at a stage where we don't want to continue investing in that area. So did really everything happen too quickly, or did I read the science incorrectly? So I was wondering if anybody has any thoughts on that.
Yeah, before I kind of verbalize what I wrote down, I do want to say it's an important question and something that I want to make sure we're very clear about. I'm going to use words like investment in this response, and it doesn't feel great to me because I understand it impacts you as humans and impacts scope that you might be passionate about, but it is the way we think about things. So I apologize that it's going to feel disconnected from the real human emotion that comes out as a result. But no, we do think about that and care about that just as equally. The thing I want to make sure we're clear on is, we agreed and invested in the APM mission, knowing that we would first focus on dogfooding, and then we would slowly transition to pursuing adoption once we got good traction with dogfooding. That was the purpose of dogfooding, is build a quick capability, get fast feedback, then move to pursuing adoption. You were mid-track in that process, but that wasn't the determining factor for should we continue this investment. Frankly, when I think about how we've been doing portfolio management in the sense of how we are investing across the product portfolio, we knew it was going to be a long payoff for APM. We knew we have large competitors that have significant market share that are evolving quickly, but we knew it was important to pursue that long term. And I think as a business, we realized that, frankly, I'll give credit to Dove and Sarah and Kevin. We said at the start of the year, in order to pursue that investment effectively, we needed more than even our current team size at that time. And we've, because of other pressures on the business, decided to not pursue that investment as heavily as we should. And that has resulted in us realizing that the payoff is too long given our kind of demands for immediate financial performance. So I think that I wouldn't tie the performance indicator thing just came out and we just had a North Star to, and then we decided, because I would agree there's no way to rationalize that is the intent of this adjustment. But we did have to ask comparatively, if we have a need in the business that we know it will be super effective in driving our business outcomes, things like investing in fulfillment, which I can't remember if Chris highlighted this, but we're losing dollars every month because customers are not able to pay us money. Scott, our VP of products, posted in a channel just yesterday that he had a conversation with a customer who really just was, their biggest frustration with our product was that they could not pay us money, that all they wanted to do was pay us money easily and we were not able to do it. Those are the kind of things that become really urgent priorities, and we have to look across the business and say, where are those kind of longer term investments that we can sacrifice today in order to shore up that capability. So I want to make sure we're crisp that this isn't a failure to perform to the performance indicators. It was just a recognition that our investment thesis, which we call out as a long-term one in APM, was unfortunately the type of investment that we need to shift away from in order to pursue shorter-term ones.
Yeah, thank you for answering that. Yeah, I understand that this is good for the company and for everybody. Yeah, I guess in a way, it's good that we identified this earlier and all of us have the opportunity to work with other teams. Yeah, thank you for answering the question. And the next question is about the growth fulfillment. So I was reading the realignment issue and it seemed to indicate that a new sub-team is going to be formed, but looks like Chris already answered and it is not the case. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay, it looks like I have another question. So I want to thank Jerome and Chris for the brief introduction to the both fulfillment and the telemetry teams. And I want to ask for the details from the backend engineer perspective about the most exciting challenges and areas to learn and grow with the wait for the new team members joining your teams. Thanks, and on to you.
Sure, that's a really great question. So for the telemetry team, there's mainly two areas where we have technical challenges on the back end. The first one is implementing product analytics. So product analytics is a feature which was written by the co-founders, Sid and DZ. And they spent their time working on this because they thought, or they feel like it's really important to have better insights into how users actually use their own GitLab instances. So what product analytics is it's a fully self-contained snowplow deployment onto a self-managed instance. So what that means is that we'd be able to see snowplow events fire from the front end and back end and have it fully collected within the instance rather than sending it over to our own collector. In order to do this, or one of the things to note is that events data is at least an order of magnitude more data than transactional data. And in order to handle that scale of data, there's a couple of things which we need to do. The first is we need to look at storing our data in a different way. Our transactional Postgres tables won't handle this right now. So we're looking at possibly an analytics database. And the second thing is we're looking at implementing a Go collector. So writing the snowplow collector in Go to be able to handle that, the volume of incoming events. The second technical challenge on the back end is the scalability of usage ping. So we enabled usage ping earlier this year, and all the teams rushed to add their metrics, and we added about 180 more metrics. Now, the problem with this is that usage ping is not scaling as well. Before, the generation time of usage ping on GitLab.com used to take about 11 hours, and now it's up to about 24 hours. So there's a bunch of optimizations which we need to make here. A couple of the things we're looking at is computing the metrics in parallel instead of serially. But that also begs the question of how do we make sure that we don't hammer the database at the same time? And then the second one is just SQL query optimizations. We've already started doing batch counting on this. And we want to see what other optimizations we can make. Clement, I think, oh, sorry, yours is nonverbal. Great. I'll hand it over to Chris then.
Yeah, so I haven't had a lot of time to kind of think about through your question, but I guess two real areas really stand out in my mind. And one is the quality and the sort of the reliability of the interfaces that we have with third-party systems. Right now, sometimes when we interface with, let's say, a system like Zora, we might be missing callbacks that come back from Zora, or we may make a call to Zora that fails, which Zora is our third-party transaction processing system and sort of subscription monitoring or subscription management system. Sometimes those processes aren't as reliable as we'd like them to be, and we really need to look more closely at sort of improving the interfaces with those systems. Another example could be provisioning, say, for instance, CI minutes in GitLab.com itself. Sometimes that process fails. We're not really on top of what happens when that process fails, and we need to make it repeatable and more reliable. So those are two areas in the sort of fulfillment that we're kind of looking at. Another thing is just simplifying the architecture of the customer portal. Right now, it's really complicated. We've kind of talked about like areas where we could make the sort of the experience simpler for customers. But one area that stands out is just combining the user database with GitLab.com and the customer portal, and just having a sort of more unified experience between the two projects. Just right now, the customer portal is fairly complicated. It's kind of grown organically over a long period of time. I think from a back-end engineering perspective, we just really need to simplify the sort of the architecture of the systems. But ping me after, and I'll think a little bit more in detail about that, and I'll try to give you some more detail after the meeting.
Okay, thank you both for the answers. It's both sounds very fascinating, so thank you.
I just wanted to add, Chris, if you can add any detail that you think about later, if you can add it to the doc, that would be great.
Will do.
Thanks.
Great suggestion, Ruben. And it looks like we're at the end of the agenda, unless anybody wants to shout out a question in the next few seconds.
This may be in the issue, but when is this plan going to take effect?
Great question. And yeah, it is in the issue. If someone would help me by taking notes on this, yeah, I'd probably be interested. Good for everybody to see it in writing. But yeah, basically, the schedule is to spend this week exploring those other teams. Just feel free to reach out to these engineering managers, learn more. Ideally, we'd like to know everybody's preferences in terms of first and second choice by Monday. So if there's some situation where you're not able to do that, you feel like that's too rushed, let me know. We can probably work around it. But yeah, ideally, if you could let either your manager or me know by Monday. And then we're looking at really having everybody in their new role, I think on the 31st, which gives next week for transition, and then the following week to really just dive into planning for 13.5 and starting to ramp up with those teams. So that's the schedule. It is listed in the description of the issue, so we'll keep that up to date if anything changes, and if there's anything with anybody's personal situation or work that you really feel like is important to wind down, take longer with, let me know, and we can we can probably accommodate that or discuss it.
Cool. And also I'd like just to say that, so I'm a front-end engineer on Verify continuous integration. So my front-end engineering manager is out this week on vacation, but if anyone, wants to ping me on Slack with like any specific questions about like what we've been working on, I'd be happy to answer those.
Yeah, likewise. Depending on where you are in time zones, you might find me or Peyton on more, but we're both on Verify CI, and I'm sure we'd be happy to answer anything.
Awesome. Really appreciate that, Peyton and Sarah.
And when it comes to general questions, you can ask in the monitor channel, in the ops section channel. Feel free to ping Sam or I if you have any other further questions after this AMA. You can also ping us directly, privately, if you'd like.
Yeah, if anyone wants to talk one-on-one, yeah, just feel free to schedule something. And yeah, all of those channels are available. And you can also ask questions on the issue itself. So lots of options there.
Yeah, I also wanted to mention I'm also available if people want to chat as well. And then since we have a big range of audience here, I also wanted to continue to reiterate what a great job the APM group has accomplished over the last few quarters with MR rate and just dogfooding efforts, just to reiterate. So yeah, we did a great job. This is just product realignment, but I don't want us to diminish that. So yeah.
Yeah,
Totally
absolutely.
agree.
I mean, there's been really incredible progress. I know since I started at the beginning of this year, yeah, it's really been impressive to see.
Yeah, I think it's already been said, but feel free to reach out to any of our front-end engineers directly on CI for coffee chats if you want to learn more. Sarah and Peyton have already volunteered, which is great. We have Fred as well, but yeah, if you want to DM me directly, we can chat further.
Thanks, Cheryl. All right, well, thank you, everybody. There will be another version of this at 4 p.m. Pacific, so anybody that's in a APAC time zone can feel free to join that. You can feel free to join again, obviously, if you want. And thank you, everybody, for the discussion.